In 1977, I saw something in my backyard that I perceived to not be an airplane. I didn't know about UFOs. I didn't know about aliens or flying saucers. I just knew what I saw was an orb. This is going to force science to rewrite books.
This is the fractal.
Yes.
You wrap yourself in the key of that other galaxy, or the edge of that galaxy. You wrap yourself up in that vibration. Guess what? You don't need to use any energy except maintaining that vibration, and the universe will move you over here.
You know, advanced beings exist. She didn't say alien. Advanced beings. They thought I was just crazy. All Satan and the devil worship and, you know, all this kind of stuff. Anything that I questioned. I'm always good when they need some money, though. When they need the money, I'm always a good. The money's good. The devil money's always good when they need the money.
And then they thank Jehovah for you giving them the money.
Boxes, I cannot fit in the boxes. Stop it. Quitting was never an option. Exhausted. This passion is never exhausted. And you cannot stop it. Nah, you cannot stop it. Quitting was never an option.
Terrence Howard is a celebrated American actor known for his strong performances in movies such as Hustle and Flow and Iron Man. He was born March 11, 1969 in Chicago, Illinois, to Tyrone Howard and Anita Williams. He came from a family of actors. His maternal great-grandmother, Minnie Gentry, was a stage actress, and his mother and uncles were actors as well. His father taught Terrence discipline at a very early age. His family struggled financially for many years before Terrence decided to move to New York to become an actor. At first, he enrolled as a student of chemical engineering at Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, New York. Dropping out after just 2 years, he began to make small appearances in television shows, including a part in The Cosby Show, starring Bill Cosby. Other roles during this time included a leading role in the television miniseries titled The Jacksons, An American Dream, and other programs such as Family Matters, Coach, and Picket Fences. Moving from television to film, Howard caught his big break with more prominent roles. The first of these was the 1995 film Mr. Holland's Opus and Dead Presidents, followed by Sunset Park in 1996.
Psychopath over there on the bench. Science is my favorite subject, Mr. Bernstein.
The Best Man in 1999. And in 2000, he co-starred with comedian Martin Lawrence in the hit film Big Mama's House. And in 2001, he starred with Jennifer Lopez in the film Angel Eyes. Other major roles followed, such as Hearts of War in 2002.
We served our country, sir. Archer and I.
Biker Boys in 2003. And Ray, featuring Jamie Foxx in 2004.
Guys, you watching out for me? Is that why you get paid double what I do?
Who told you that?
Well, it's true, ain't it? You and Marlene have been gaming me since I got here.
Ray, baby, listen.
Got to listen to you.
A self-taught musician, Howard plays both the piano and the guitar. You can see Terrence display his musical talents opposite Jamie Foxx in the breakout film Ray in 2004. A promising songwriter, Howard's lyrics were soon to be acquired by some of today's top and biggest artists. Howard's reputation as a respected actor was now confirmed, and he began to receive even more lucrative roles. In 2004, he co-starred with several of Hollywood's top stars, such as Sandra Bullock, Don Cheadle, Thandie Newton, Matt Dillon, and Ryan Phillip, Jennifer Esposito, Michael Pena, Brendan Fraser, Ludacris, in the film Crash.
Man, don't walk up on me! I know this man! Get back!
The film and the performance of the cast was critically acclaimed, and the cast won the Screen Actors Guild Award for Outstanding Performances by a Cast in a Motion Picture.
And the Oscar goes to Crash.
The film itself received 6 Academy Award nominations, of which it won 3. and numerous other awards and nominations. He followed up with Hustle and Flow in 2005, for which he was nominated for Oscar, Screen Actors Guild, and Golden Globe Awards. He also sang all of his own songs for the soundtrack of the film, and the song was It's Hard Out Here for a Pimp, which won the Academy Award for Best Original Song.
Feel that.
You know it's hard out here for a pimp.
Howard also starred in the Marvel hit Iron Man alongside Robert Downey Jr. and Gwyneth Paltrow in 2008.
Next time, baby.
In 2008, Howard also made his Broadway debut in an African-American production of Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. He also released the first studio album titled Shine Through It, which is a mix of R&B and soul and pop. In 2011, he played the role of Nelson Mandela in the film Winnie.
The sentence is life imprisonment.
He also appeared in the prominent television show Law & Order LA and also Law & Order Special Victims Unit.
Who are you?
Deputy DA, Los Angeles.
Law & Order LA's Terrence Howard comes to town.
So today, folks, I want you to welcome Terrence Howard to Quantum Minds on the Forbidden Knowledge TV network.
Okay, so Terrence, finally, man, we're sitting here in person. Welcome to the show.
I think this is in person. Thank you, brother, for having me here.
A lot better than Instagram cell phones.
Yeah, that was not good. My backyard is not really cooperative with
But you know what? I appreciate you sticking it out for over an hour and a half with the mosquitoes in the heat. I mean, you kept moving around to get away from the bugs, and you came through, man. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, that was hard because my wife, she was like, "What are you doing?" She's my manager.
Yeah.
So she always wants to run through the business side of it, and I was like, "This is outside of our business."
Right.
With what we're doing, I had to sneak to do that interview.
You got to the backyard. Listen, man, I appreciate it. But you know what? With as crazy as it was with the connection and the bugs and everything else and the heat, the people got a lot of knowledge out of it. People really resonated with that. Yeah.
They really seem to enjoy just the back and forth and the honesty. Yeah. You know, we both are coming from the same kind of place. I mean, I try everything I can to be a man of integrity. Yeah. You know, I only hang out with people that have integrity. Like I used to have friends before, and they would cheat on their wives. And I'm like, how can I be a friend with you? How can I expect you to have any fidelity with our friendship when you stood in a room in a church in front of your family and her family, all your ancestors from the past, and all that you will come to be, and you promise to do something, and then you break that, and you think I'm going to be a friend. No, we don't do that.
We have the same mindset, brother, because, you know, I would meet people at different places where I knew there was going to be a lot of women business meetings. I would meet them like at the Ritz-Carlton on the patio on Fort Lauderdale Beach, and I'd be paying attention. Can they hold this conversation? Can we keep this conversation going? Can we work on what we're working on without your neck being broken in every direction, trying to catch every woman walking by in a bikini? And if they can't keep attention, if they're focused on the women more than the meeting, then I realize I can't do business with that person.
No, integrity and bad association, like the Bible says, spoils the most useful of habits. And it took me a long time to learn that. Yeah. But we have to clean our associations. We have to clean our mindsets and our goals. Yeah. You know, you can't make it to the promised land holding on to the hand of someone who's headed in the opposite direction.
Correct. Everybody's not going to go with you.
No.
That's just a fact. And so speaking of that, I mean, were you ever into religion? And if so, how did that encourage you to explore science and invention?
Well, my mother raised us as, you know, Baptist, Methodist, that whole Christendom aspect of it. We believed every part of that. My father, when he went to prison when I was 3, when he came back out, he was a Muslim. So he taught us Islam, and we became Muslims. You know, I have an Islamic name, Suleiman. Wow. And that desire to worship the one true God, that what he instilled in us. But there was something that happened when I'm like 13. There was a young brother named Yakub, you know, used to wear his dashiki, was really cool with my dad, had this great skunk-like, musk-like cologne on, and he was a man of integrity. But then one day I come home and there's a bunch of my father's friends around, all Muslims, and they're all talking in the living room. And I asked what had happened, and they said that Yakub was in prison, was in jail because he had apparently cut off some man's genitals who had urinated on the masjid.
Oh, okay.
Now I'm like, this is a child of God.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I don't care what my son does.
Right.
I would much rather you come and tell me than don't mutilate my child out of thinking you're respecting me. Don't kill your brother in this way, even if he doesn't know that he's your brother yet. So I began to question that. And then I questioned the idea of equanimity and justice. You know, how can just God burn someone forever? This is going back to the Bible. For something that they have done, even if it was heinous, for 30, 40, 50, 60 years. There's no way I could burn my child that went wayward forever and torment them forever, calling myself a loving God. So then I had to look at the doctrine and where it was leading me to and what was the necessity of it. And you have to look behind the curtain. You have to ask the hard questions. And yeah, that had a lot to do with me looking for truth. And
Zensurance wants to ask, are you self-employed without business insurance?
The Bible did say something that impressed me. It said that God was suspending the circle of the earth above nothing at all. And this is at a time when everyone considered the earth to be flat.
Right. And you're going back now.
Excuse me.
That's okay.
And I'm like, wow, he's suspending. How would they know that he's suspending the circle of the earth above? And then there was another point in Job, it says, where God was four angels are at the four corners of the earth holding back the winds. And I'm like, how does a sphere have four corners? You know, so that ignited a desire towards geometry and understanding it. And that's what the all shape ultimately was, those four corners. You know, that discovery. And all that came from Walter Russell and him speaking about the doubling sequence in the 1, the 2, the 4, the 8, the 16, that process. But the necessity, in order for anything to be measurable, it had to have 4 equal and opposite or measurable dimensions.
Yeah, exactly.
That blew my mind because it was no longer this 3 that we've been hit with. It was this 4. And when I started applying that, all the other things opened up.
Just unfolded.
So the Bible did play a part with that. My father's desire to seek truth had a big part in that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know that you mentioned before on a few podcasts that, you know, your journey in quantum physics really began with yourself.
Yeah.
And how does one begin? And I'm in the same boat as you, obviously, but I want other people to hear, like, what was your journey in learning quantum physics?
Well, you hear these stories about Einstein or these great inventors or physicists, but then the information and the theories that they present are contradictory to each other. And I was like, how are these things making any kind of progress or attempting to assist progress into advancing any math or any technology if they are all in conflict? And I kept waiting. I thought by the time I got 30 or 40, you know, all of these, whether string theory was real or not, it would be proven, or whether relativity was real or not. I was like, Einstein never received a Nobel Prize except for his work on the photoelectric effect, and that was Max Planck's work that he was just verifying. But Einstein didn't get none of his stuff really came to full fruition. But he's still considered as this prop placed up by science. But I couldn't get any understanding from that. So I started looking into the people that were questioning, that were enemies of his. of Einstein's ideas in a sense.
Of his concepts,
so I went into Lorentz, who in 1905, who had his own idea regarding the electron and the superpositioning of models of how everything behaved. But his stuff was based off of Maxwell's work, and Maxwell's work was based off of an ether. Everyone believed that there was this subspace ether, this fabric of space. And so I looked into their work and John Keely's work and Victor Schauberger's work.
His work is incredible. I mean, I remember doing an episode in Deep Space, a TV series I did years and years ago, and I had to study Victor Schauberger and just like blew my mind.
That he was so conscious.
Oh my goodness.
And passionate about you're killing the forest. This forest is dead. You've killed the water. How in the world do you kill the water?
Right.
Dr. Yamoto didn't come out with that until what, the 80s?
The 80s, yeah.
And Victor Schauberger had been talking about that since the late 1800s, the living water.
Yeah, he was ahead of his time. For sure.
So those were influences that led, but I had to go in search of that. I went to school for chemical engineering or apply for electrical engineering, but I was looking at the antiquated ways in which they were dealing with the universe or their approach to it and asking questions, and they didn't have an answer. They didn't have an answer. It was not sufficient for 96% of the universe to be unknown.
Unknown, dark matter, dark energy, which is still unknown.
Unknown.
Yeah.
Unknown, unknowable. And the 4% that they have out there, the speed of light, that's not a true constant in it because light changes its speed depending on the medium it goes through. That's like having the speed of the human race. Mm-hmm. You know, black people are going to run differently than white people, than Asians. Everything is going to change. It's a conditional fact.
Yeah.
You're going to change according to the conditions, and light adjusts depending on the conditions. So a lot of those things I saw as unrealities, and I couldn't rely on them.
Gotcha.
So that was me. What about you?
Well, me, you know, it was really interesting. I loved science when I was in school, science and chemistry. I was really good at it, but I didn't have a thirst for it until around 2010. So around 2010,
how old were you then?
39 years old, and you know, I had already been studying aerospace technology for years. I studied aerospace technology since 1977. In 1977, I saw something in my backyard that I perceived to not be an airplane. I didn't know about UFOs. I didn't know about aliens or flying saucers. I just knew what I saw was an orb, a little bit longer or elongated than an egg, glowing metal, and it moved across the horizon in seconds, not minutes. It didn't have a cockpit, didn't have wings, didn't have windows on it or anything. And it came back and stopped completely silent, and it just disappeared again. I ran in the house and told my mom, and she was like, there was advanced beings in the ancient past. And she told me about Machu Picchu. She said they used to live on tops of big mountains. And that was in 77. Fast forward, that gave me a quench and a thirst for technology, just understanding aerospace, swept wing, delta wing, ballistics, and everything else. I studied all that stuff for years. Didn't get really deep into the science other than basic high school science. But in 2010, when I was 39, something really changed. I had a very strange experience at my house with, I don't know exactly what it is. I mean, I talked about it on a few podcasts before. I felt like an otherworldly experience that I had. But after that experience happened, something happened to me with wanting to understand science at a deeper level, into quantum physics. And I really started deep diving into physics. A lot of the same people you mentioned, I was researching them, studying them heavily. I actually went to Khan University, Khan. It used to be free, but now you have to pay, I think, a minimum like $10-15 a month or something like that right now online, an online university for quantum physics. So I went there online, started taking those courses, and I was able to understand all this information. And it was so incredible. I just kept diving deeper. And then I opened up a Facebook group for quantum physics on Facebook, and it grew to like 140,000 students. And I would help them answer questions in there and so forth, over time. And so that's really how I got into quantum physics. I just really developed this thirst for it. And I'm only talking about that incident that happened because it didn't happen until after the incident. Something triggered something or sparked something in me that made me dive into it. And then I was able to see the connection between the science and spirituality. And I realized that the quantum physics is really explaining what's happening on the spiritual realm. In other words, the quantum physics is the breakdown and understanding of spiritual energy and what's really happening when you're meditating, when you're focusing on things, when you're trying to manifest reality. All those things are really explained through quantum physics.
Yeah, well, it's you're that observer or the spooky
spooky action at a distance.
Spooky action at a distance. Your observation of it, it affects things. Things aren't just, you're not just perceiving it. It has, when you put your finger in the water, the entire ocean has to register that change of motion and condition. It has to be understood on some level. So us gaining information by what's been laid out in front of us, presented before us, most of that is speculation. Because like I was saying before, all of those things, all of that 4% of the universe, they've received Nobel Prizes and all of that for it, but they haven't produced anything that's changing the world or the conditions or making the world a better place. So it still looks like Solomon said, you're chasing after the wind. And when you start questioning these things and going back into meditating, going back, like when I tell people that a lot of this stuff came to me, like you, after having that experience and seeing that aviation phenomenon, it made you question and look into things. Well, likewise, having that dream when I was 4 or 5 years old and being reminded that I was someplace before here, and seeing all those geometries and wondering, why had I never seen those in school?
Right.
And looking for them in school. So I started looking in the Encyclopedia Britannica, and that's where you get the Platonic solids. But then you have to start, what we're afraid to do is question what happened before the Big Bang.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, well, how did this straight line come to be? I started questioning all of those basic things, questioning down to the calculator, questioning every aspect, and questioning, okay, if what they said about God is true, that means I'm an artifact. That he just formed some clay and made me and blew some life into me. And they forgot to mention, or the people that was writing it was unaware of the Brownian effect, that clay is not some dead, unliving material. That clay is alive. It's vibrating and polarizing from positive to negative. Everything, and it's mating. Everything is mating. Like when I mentioned wave conjugations, I always hear, oh, waves don't conjugate. It's like, no, you don't understand that these things are living and are mating. The sex principle is a big part of everything. That's how the universe reproduces itself. But then questioning things like, in a contained universe. Well, this is the biggest thing that happened to me when I was a kid. When I thought I was doing something, I was 13, and I dropped a pebble into the pond and I watch it expand, and I realize everything expanded as a sphere. But if the universe was infinite, then it will just keep expanding out and you'll never see it return. But the moment I started seeing returning waves, and those returning waves were now hitting these expanding waves, I saw the same geometries that I had seen in those dreams. And I'm like, oh, so the universe isn't infinite. It has to be finite. And everything inside the universe has been built from the outside in. It's not the inside building out, it's the outside pushing in these contractive forces. Oh, so that gives me a different insight as towards the effects of, or the anomaly of gravity. When you start looking at it from what has been and not based off of that big G has always been God in the scientific world, you have to question that sometimes.
That makes a lot of sense what you're talking about, how the wave pressure coming in is helping to collapse this reality.
It holds it in place.
Yeah, because even if you look at the double slit experiment, when you're not observing the electrons going through the slits in this microscopic box, they act as waves of potential. But once you look, they collapse back into digital matter again. But when they're waves, they're giving you this superposition. Potential waves of what? Potentiality. But consciousness can collapse that back in. And in my opinion, what's happening is when a conscious observer is looking at these waves, it's like that force coming back in on the wave and collapsing it into the illusion of solidity.
Yeah, the illusion. There's all of this is an illusion, and to consider all of our collapsing waves, like the weight, the atmosphere, the pressure, the weight of the atmosphere. That's what holds each system together. So it should be the returning magnetic waves are responsible for the things that we call matter holding itself together. But if we just go on.
No, this is great. This is phenomenal. This is a great conversation. I think people are going to get a lot out of this, and I'm so glad that we're here doing this in person, man. Because this is going to be. I just want to I like giving people credit where credit is due, and I really think you have a magnificent mind. And whether a person went to Stanford, Harvard, or MIT or whatever, it means nothing. It means absolutely nothing, because who was the first quantum physicist? And where did his degree come from? It didn't exist, right? There's no degree. There's no university. He went to the University of Life, and he got his degree in nature. And then he began to teach that to people. And then eventually they created a university. And then eventually people got a certificate for going there. You know?
But it doesn't, just because you've been reminded and have repeated words and phrases and theories constantly upon itself, no matter how many times you say it, it doesn't make it true. What makes it true, like Jesus said, you will know it by its fruits. What kind of fruits have it produced? Has it just produced a lot of speculation? Then great. Then it's an imaginary thing. But if it's something that is defining universal structure, then it makes it more simpler. It doesn't make it more complex. It makes it more simple, and there's immediate application to it, and invention that will have application and improve a particular system. That should be the method. Now, what they've done is they've pedestalized all of the old inventors or theorists and physicists from before. So now it is heretical.
Yes.
Heretical to even question.
Facts. It became a religion.
It's a religion. It's a religion now, and you get burned at the stake. Even when you come with, I thought that by presenting patents, I thought that inventing new forms of flight, innovating multiple areas, starting being responsible for half of the AR/VR that's out there, that all of these things would be enough. And then having the wave conjugations to predict every potential harmonic node. And matter occurs as a result of harmonic nodal interaction. It's circulating around that area. So I thought having these things and having a platform, it would garner people's interest. But like Jesus said, for those who have ears and those who have eyes, those are the ones to see. And if it took 500 million sperm in order for me to get here and get to that egg, I had to win.
Born when it counts. Arc'teryx.
Win a race against 500 million. I think getting to the next stage of our evolution and growth, if A is equal to B and B is equal to C, then everybody isn't going to make it. And so I don't need to beat a dead horse in trying to encourage people to look and challenge things. The material is out there. The proof is out there. I've given it, sufficiently. If they don't want it, then I'll continue moving forward.
Yeah, we just continue moving forward. That's how we do it. And speaking of challenges, like what are some of the challenges you might have faced even in the early stages, maybe even growing up, in acting? Any challenges that you faced in your life?
Well, the first challenge is surviving our Black neighborhood, surviving the disenfranchisement, surviving not having a sense of self. How do you know where you're going when you don't know where you've been, where you've come from? You don't know who you are. Your uncles and your father, they're having to do nefarious things in order to survive and pay for you, because we live in a system that's not balanced. How do you maintain your morality in a world that's dark and immoral? How do you avoid the puffy parties? How do you avoid the the Epstein ultimate effect, where you gain so much power that you lose your sense of self. How do you stay connected to the earth and to your spiritual responsibility? That's been one of the biggest challenges out of everything. It's maintaining that.
Right, maintaining that. Yeah, and I can understand 1,000%. You know, coming from where I came from in the hood growing up, and just looking around and seeing the disarray and people just not really understanding, like parents, you know, openly beating their kids in the street and people getting shot, people getting stabbed. I've been shot, I've been stabbed, you know, overcoming that and realizing like, wow, there's gotta be something better. I feel like I'm just one of the fortunate ones that was able to see beyond the veil and realize like, this isn't for me. And I told my mother, I don't belong here. I knew it. I had that gut wrenching feeling that I didn't belong there. And that was a big challenge. And the only thing that really ignited me to get out of that situation was the fact that one day I took a risk. I made a decision to go door to door asking for donations for my toys to my friends' parents, which I wasn't allowed to do. I wasn't allowed to leave the front yard of the house because it was too dangerous. And I went door to door around the entire block. I squared a block and I came back with like $13 and change. And I knew at that moment I was going to save myself. And I told myself out loud, I'm going to save myself. I realized that if I have a thought and I act on it, I can get a different result and I can change this reality tunnel that I'm in. And so that's exactly what I did. And once I did that, man, I knew for a fact I was going to escape this hell. And I did.
Yeah, it's like the superpositioning model we were talking about before, that fourth person perspective, you know, that observational place. I've always said that, you know, everyone sees a different horizon based on their height, their vision, and their imagination.
Yeah.
You know, you see what you want to see. It crystallizes in front of you because that's all you're willing to speed up to.
Exactly.
Because it's just a matter of turning up your vibratory response, you know, and then you can catch more inside of those little waveforms. But we at times have been told, okay, this is what you have to do. You know, you beat Black people. Into submission.
Right.
So Black people have been beating our children into submission. You know, we are of no value. So we might as well, you can shoot a Black person and get less time in prison in comparison to shooting a white person, you know, under the same circumstances. So we're taught that there is of no value in this thing called descendants of Al-Kabila.
That's a fact. And so that's a big challenge for a lot of people. But I think that both of us are living proof that you can overcome these situations. It's a matter of your mindset and your vibration. I chose to vibrate higher, you know, and it doesn't mean that I never got in trouble doing anything and doing stupid stuff when I was a kid or a teenager. But overall, the overarching conscious thought was always, how do I get out of here? And how do I build the type of family that I dream of and what I envision to be a good life, you know?
Yeah, and see, like I pedestalize, you know, Jesus and a lot of these prophets and Buddha, but I did not see them as something unattainable for me. I wanted what Jesus was trying to accomplish. I didn't want what Jesus did. I wanted what he was trying to do. So when I go about and I'm doing my very best to be the Messiah in my daily life, looking for opportunities in which, how do I make way for life? How do I extend and help someone else along the way? Then I feel like when I'm watering my plants at night, you know, I've turned the hose upside down to where it goes up and it's taking its natural turn. And I know that all of these plants have been praying and hoping. You know, they're alive, they're conscious, they're praying in this hot California heat for someone to bring them water. And every day when I'm giving them water, I'm the extension of God. I'm making their dreams come true. And sometimes my wife is upset about the fact that I'm out there putting all of this time into it, but it's what moves me in hopes that when I'm in a situation that there's a greater being that's able to hear it. And if everybody is doing that, and conscious of every thought that goes through our minds, the entire universe has to share that thought.
Yes.
Whether you carry it out or not, the entire universe. So we are responsible for how God is perceived.
Facts. Facts. And I went live the other day, and I was really going in hard. I did one of my rants, right? And I was ranting about the Electoral College. And people thought I was only talking about the political system and voting, but I was really talking about taking that same thing you just said, becoming your own Messiah, becoming your own president, that mindset, that frequency. And what does that mean? Becoming the president of your own life and become the president of your family. In other words, it means taking on that responsibility. I said, if you want your community to be fixed, you go out and fix your community.
Bingo.
If you want situations to be repaired in your life and in your family's life, financially or otherwise, you work on that, because nobody's coming in here to save you and fix that problem except for you. You are the one that you've been waiting for. You are the savior you've been waiting on. And when people get the concept of understanding that they are their own saviors versus taking the victim mentality and trying to make an outside source into a slave, this world will change, the universe will change overnight.
Yeah, when you know that you are responsible to get yourself out of the hole,
yeah,
you become inventive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, facts.
But when you're waiting for someone else to come and save you from an enslaved condition,
yeah,
freedom is not given. Freedom is something you take.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Freedom is something that you demand.
Mm-hmm.
If it's handed to you,
yeah,
that's not free. That's not liberty,
yeah.
You know, and we're supposed to be agents or apertures of the Creator in all that we do, if we are truly made in God's image.
Right.
And we do have God's power, because we have the ability to bring life or death to multitudes of creatures.
Yes.
We can blow a planet out of the sky if we want. So we have the power of God. What are we doing with it?
Exactly. We literally have the power. People don't understand that. Like when people say, the power is in you, the light is in you, people think it's just a phrase or a term, but it's real. The real energy, the divine spark that created everything in the universe, is in every atom inside of our body. It inhabits us. So we are God and God is us. And when you begin to understand and grasp that and realize that everything that exists has been manifested by a conscious thought by people. We are creating everything that exists. This table, this microphone, the cell phone, even the paper that's here with the ink on it. We're manifesting this out of conscious thoughts into reality, and people take it for granted. They think that they don't have any power, and human beings don't have the power to create or destroy. But if you look around and pay attention, we're creating and destroying everything. We're the ones that have the power to do that. It's been granted and gifted to us. We just have to know how to wield that power.
Well, maybe we're just a product of this condition of when the earth or planet gets to this particular position from the sun, and the earth will ultimately have to be pushed out to where Mars is, and everything will expand on it. There has to be something that tears it down. So maybe humanity is that thing that tears down, that which was put up. Maybe that is our position, because apparently that's what we seem to do. We're very caustic, and I'm hoping that we can become non-caustic, and maybe that's the idea of what Homo sapiens are. Homo sapiens. But I can no longer consider myself to be part of a Homo sapien species when they are now nothing like me. They're nothing like my thought process or my hopes or my actions. I'm an actor because I wanted to win my mother's approval. My mother wanted my brother to be an actor, and I wanted her affection so bad that I'm like, okay, if I become an actor, I'll get her affection. But the moment she died, I realized, what am I doing this? I had no, hey, Ma, look what I'm doing. I'm like, oh, I've gotten distracted, being insecure about my affection with my mother. How many more of us are pursuing things that have nothing to do with our calling or our purpose because we're trying to, my mother's been dead, for damn near 20 years now, longer. I can't waste energy trying to please her when I already had her approval. Right. I just was insecure. So bound yourself up, strengthen yourself up, and get to the job that you have to do. Otherwise, you're wasting your time, and you'll end up being relegated to another purpose instead of that which you were supposed to accomplish.
Man, you speaking true facts today. I had run many companies. I built several big companies. Before I got in, became Forbidden Knowledge, I was running a huge call center, a 5,000 square foot call center in Fort Lauderdale. And we had about 50 people on the phones, 2 stories of this nice building, and generating about $150,000 to $200,000 a week in gross revenue, doing pretty well. But I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy because, well, you know, I wasn't living in my passion. Obviously, my passion wasn't being fulfilled. It wasn't something that that I felt was my true mission here. I knew what my mission was already, but I was thinking, I know this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm doing this super part-time because I started in 2007, right? But I'm like, but I have to make money. I have to pay. I got a family. I got da-da-da-da, right? And I didn't realize that once you live in your passion and you exchange that energy for that passion and you find a need for that passion in the world, the money shows up as a side effect. So you don't have to chase the money. And when I realized that, the day that I realized that, I walked into the office and went to my partners and said, guys, I'm out of here. And they said, what do you mean? I said, I have to really follow my passion. I have to walk away. And they were stunned and shocked because I had set this whole system up and it was very successful. And they said, well, how much do you want for your share of the company? I said, you guys keep my share. I'm starting from zero. And I walked out and I became forbidden knowledge, you know, and I just started from zero. You know, it took me from 2013, beginning of 14, all the way to 2017 before I turned on monetization to try to figure out how am I going to really monetize. I had to build it first. And then from there, you know, I continue to grow every single year. But man, but you say, if you're not living in your passion, you're doing something else that has nothing to do with your true mission, and you're in agony. And every single day, I didn't even want to do that work. I didn't want to get involved, and I didn't want to go to the office. I got to the point where they're like, "Are you coming in today?" And I wouldn't come in for like a week at a time. And I realized, man, I'm just burning years. I'm burning time, and I'm not making any change. There's no appreciable effect on the planet because of what I'm doing there, and I have to make a change.
Do you remember that book, Who Moved My Cheese by Spencer Johnson?
Oh, no, I don't know that one.
Oh, my God.
Check it out.
You'll love it. But it's a story of these 4 little creatures, 2 little mice and 2 little people.
Yeah.
And they live outside of this enigma.
Okay.
What do you call it when there's, damn, I just had a senior moment.
It's like a cave?
When the mouse runs through this.
Oh, the mouse hole?
Yeah, but what is that called?
Oh, the maze.
The maze.
Yeah.
The maze. Oh my God, I kept calling her muse.
Don't worry.
So they live outside of this maze.
Yeah.
And every day the little mice, they go inside to look for their cheese, and they've got the same routine. They put their little sneakers on and sniffs in the direction, and then scurry runs in the direction that sniffed in. And then there's him and haw. And they
Get a small $1 coffee or $2 latte until November 24th at A&W.
And they have their little human ways of finding cheese, and they like a different type of cheese.
Okay.
You know, they like soft cheeses. But something interesting happens when they find this place called Cheese Station C. And in Cheese Station C, it's all the cheese you could ever want, all the cheese you could ever need. And all of the 2 little mice, they keep doing the same thing. Every morning they get up and they sniff in the direction to go, and they find Cheese Station C.
Yeah.
But the little humans, they move next to Cheese Station C. They live right there next to Cheese Station C, and they never notice that Cheese Station C is running out.
Gotcha.
And so one day when all the cheese is gone, the little mice, they sniff and they run in direction of the new cheese.
Yeah.
But him and Ha, they sit there and they start complaining, who moved my cheese? Who moved my cheese? And you find that having cheese doesn't make one happy. It's the search for new cheese. It's that search. You had already accomplished all of these things, but here you're just repeating, and when you're supposed to be growing to the forbidden knowledge aspect of it. So I applaud that. You know, for me, it's been the same thing of, you know, I could be quiet and be a good actor and make millions and millions of dollars, but that's not what I wanted. What I wanted to do was to explore the truth and then share that truth with individuals. And I'm doing that as the best that I can. You know, now I have to take the responsibility off and say, hey, it's there.
Yeah.
Now I'll just keep building it.
Right. You keep building, and you're doing a great job. It takes a lot of courage to do what you've done so far. And I don't know if people can really understand the level of courage that it takes to step outside of what is considered the norm and is considered to be a great career, to then start talking in an area where you're talking against a lot of what the mainstream considers as real science, right? So you're bringing these new ideas, new concepts. That takes courage, because you're going against the grain. And a lot of people, I don't know if they realize how hard that is for a person to just step out and actually have the strength inside of them to do that.
Well, when you've been given little secrets along the way that point in the direction that says, nope, this upturns their cart. Red flags don't come free. You have to use them. And so I knew that they didn't have facts. They just had propaganda. They didn't have any facts behind them, or these theories would no longer be theories. They would be constants and accepted things in there. And I had the actual proof. I had simple proof down to the malfunctioning of the calculator and the things that they hold as important and reliable. I'm like, no, this is you can't rely on.
It's flawed.
It's flawed.
Yeah.
The foundation of your entire world is flawed, and I'm presenting the truth and with proof. And I say it's the truth because it comes with the proof of it.
Yeah.
No,
you bring the receipts.
Yes.
That's what you bring in, the receipts, and that's what matters. Have you seen any connection to your art of acting with the science that you're involved in, or is it completely two separate things?
No, everything is one action. I'm still looking for, like, they give me these characters, and one of the things that I do, and they always throw a bad guy at me. But I don't believe there are any bad guys, like James Earl Jones told me. He's like, let Sidney play all the politicians and these great people. He said, I want to play the complicated people, because I came from a complicated life and a complicated world. So I want to find humanity and peacefulness in resolving someone. So when I get on a series like Empire, and who the character after 2 years was supposed to die,
right?
He was supposed to have
really?
Yeah, he's supposed to ALS.
Oh wow.
And so he would receive his justice and become a better person by the end of the second season. That's what I was expecting.
Yeah.
And then there, out of nowhere, they want to save him because they wanted to keep him alive, but he was a zombie. I could not save that person with their storyline. So you have to find a space where you can, I'm trying to become a better person, no matter what the condition the person has been in. So there's a tie, towards truth, towards compassion, towards love, because every bad character started off as a beautiful child, and somewhere along the way, some fundamental was missed.
Right, exactly. Yeah. It brings me down to just understanding it's not really a law or a constant, but I guess it might be considered a constant hypothetically, love, right? And which is a frequency. And if you look at like the movie Star Wars, the Jedi, they use the frequency for the light, and then the Empire uses the same frequency for the dark. So even though you start off as a this great little soul that's just filled with light and and knowledge and wanting to grow and to be this great person, and all of a sudden at some point, because of all the things that interact with us, it can then change, and in some way that person's mind decides to use that same light that was in them for darkness. But it's still only one light. In the Bible, in Isaiah, it says, I created the good and I created the evil. Do what I say at the Lord. So God is saying he's creating the good and the evil. So it's this dichotomy of yin and yang, which inside of all of us.
I mean, you have a sword or a knife. The knife can be used to cut open a person, or it could be used to open up a watermelon.
Yeah.
It's just it's in the hand of the beholder, in a sense. Yeah. We are what we choose to be, and bad association, again, like Timothy, it spoils the most useful of habits. Yeah. When you watch death continually, you lose the appreciation of life. When you watch and are associating with people that are not bending to the light and yielding to the light, and they just turn their back to it, then you end up crystallizing in the wrong direction. But at any given point, you can look inside and reconnect with your greater being, with your greater purpose at any given point. You can turn around and identify with the divinity that is in you.
Right. Absolutely.
And have the access to everything. People criticize a lot. Well, you didn't get a degree. You didn't learn these things from our schools, and neither did Ramanujan.
Exactly.
Ramanujan said he got it from Shiva. So why are you accepted from him? And he had just equations. Here I have true patterns and full things and defining things that have never been defined before.
Right.
Why don't you accept it? And I had to accept that they weren't supposed to accept it. It wasn't meant for them.
Right.
But the people that do accept it and understand, within that is the secrets to everlasting life.
Yeah. Yeah.
The true secrets of being able to manipulate the universe in a good way. And I think the universe gave me these gifts because of my overall nature. At the end of the day, I don't really care about humanity. I care about the hue of our humanity.
Okay.
I want a legacy to where we're considered like the angels, you know, and animal and plant life to rejoice when they interact with us instead of running in fear. Like my ninth rule for my family is make way for life. And that's the message for our church.
Yeah.
The Center for Truth, Love, and Consciousness, TCO-TLC, is make way for life.
Gotcha. Beautiful. That's beautiful, man. And speaking of some of the rules that you have, let's talk about teriology. You've introduced the idea of teriology. It's a different approach on how you see the universe's fundamental building blocks. So let's get into that.
Well, see, the funny thing is that was the writer for the Rolling Stones.
That you came up with that term?
He said teriology, and I think he said it as a slight. Because that entire article was seriously a hit job.
Wow.
But I told him about the Tetractarian wave conjugations.
Okay.
That's what it always was, but they began calling it teriology.
Oh, gotcha.
Just to
like a little jab.
As a jab.
Yeah.
But the fact that they're talking about it and had to talk about it actually added to what we're doing, because these are, what I did is I took the flower of life. So if we go to my book, tcotlc.com, this is kind of the journey of how these wave conjugations came about.
Okay.
I was told that our fundamentals came from the Platonic solids. And my question had always been, because I always wanted to get to the root of things, like I loved etymology. I wanted to get to the root of the word and understand what was intended.
Yeah.
So I wanted to know where the fundamentals came from. And they said that the fundamentals were the tetrahedron, the octahedron, the hexahedron, the icosahedron, and the dodecahedron.
Right.
And I was like, okay, where did these come from? Well, they come from the idea of a straight line and a flat plane and all having regular sides. But I was like, so where did the straight line come from?
Yeah.
Here I am asking, how did God come to be?
Right.
Because God is the straight line. Because what do they say? We want to straighten something out. Yeah. If there's any situation that's wiggly, let's put a ruler on it. Let's straighten this out. Let's get it all squared away. So that's their kind of God. I was like, let me look at this. And since Newton said every action has an equal and opposite reaction, that's never been argued. Therefore, the greater the action, that means the greater the reaction. The greater the reaction, the greater the resistance. The greater the resistance, the greater the curvature. And since the Creator demands equanimity, everything has an equal and opposite reaction. Therefore, every reaction is going to be curved and based on the angular momentum that's created from the intersection. So I was like, so where did they get these straight lines from? If God couldn't make straight lines, they invented them. So where did they invent them from? I was like, well, I went to the oldest and earliest information I could find. And this is what really got me, because it took me back to those dreams that I used to have. Here, I'm pulling something up. Now, here's the flower of life.
Okay.
Yep. the age of it is almost unknown.
Oh, yeah.
But each and every, it's 64 overlapping circles, but there are no straight lines there. But at a time when the thought was that there were straight lines or the world was flat, guess what they did? They averaged the spaces where the circles overlap.
Exactly.
And I was like, oh, that's an average. That's an approximation. That's not real.
Right.
You know, the Pythagorean theorem coming from the cube. And I was like, well, maybe they didn't open the flower properly. So what I did was the little Jiminy Cricket that's been leading me along the way, it said, why don't you lay out the flower of life and open it based upon the relative factors? Let me go to page 134 in the book. That was just on 64.
Okay.
And said, why don't you open it based upon the actual actual pieces that make up the flower?
Right.
And mind you, I was still trying to figure out what were those shapes that were being presented to me when I was 4 and 5 years old.
Right.
I hadn't seen them yet, even after in researching this stuff. And then this is when it all came into being.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, oh, this is tight. Wow, that's good. Let me do that again. Let's go right. Sorry. That's tight. Okay. So I was like, what happens if I take 4 of the individual pieces that make up the flower? And that's 4 of the triangular pieces that makes up the flower. So I was like, if I take 4 of these triangular pieces and put them together based on universal ratios, then it gave me this negative space where 4 bubbles met.
Right.
And based on what Walter Russell had talked about in the nature of how electricity moves, it's always seeking a higher pressure condition.
Yeah.
So this area in here, let's see if this will open up, get a little bigger for me. This area right here is where electricity is going to be spinning northeasterly.
Okay.
Spinning to the right. Now, as the electricity, as each wave hits here, now it's being pushed by other waveforms, and so it gets pushed out to these vortices at the tip, and now it's no longer able to spin northeast, and so it starts, because it has low density, it has nothing to push against, so it starts spinning southwesternly.
Gotcha.
And now this is where it becomes magnetism. Well, I found it interesting, but they gave me the patents for this thing, and I called it the tetryon.
Yeah.
You know, but it turned out to be the geometry of hydrogen. And I'll explain that, I will qualify that as we go along. Then I was like, well, what happens when 8 bubbles meet? Now, what was interesting, this is the negative space where 8 bubbles are meeting.
Yeah.
And you have the 8 contractive sides for the Huntian. 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's 5, 6, 7, 8 if you were to turn it all the way around. But it only had 6 magnetic poles. So that meant that it had a greater electrical potential than a magnetic or repulsive potential. And I was like, wow, that sounds like a neutron.
Yes.
That sounds like the work of a neutron. But what was interesting, I was like, but how does it have, in nature, everything is always balanced. I was like, so this having a greater electrical potential than a repulsive potential, magnetic potential, I was like, that wouldn't exist inside of the universe unless this right here, each time these tetrions, these 4 tetrions, as they unite around or combine or interact, you'll see that they are taking up 1, 2, you have 1 and 2 of the electric potentials taken up. And they gave me, again, oops, God forgive me. I will have me a engineer one of these days with me. This is like some, but you still have 6 bubbles meeting, and they gave me the patents to that, but you still have 6 unaccounted for. So I was like 6 electrical poles unaccounted for. So I was like, what happens when 6 bubbles meet? And here with 12 bubbles meeting. And now you still have 4 unaccounted electrical poles, and it's a stable system. And I called this an Aubrian. And I'll show you in the video that I just showed you the supersymmetry of it. But then I was like, what happens when you put 24 bubbles together? And again, all of these the patents were granted. But you'll notice this entire thing is literally the pressure condition that's generated from 8 of the tetraons pushing on a given point. Pushing on this one center right here. So this doesn't really exist. This only exists as a result of the condition of these tetraons or these atoms in relation to each other. But as a result of this, the entire universe ends up making sense because this pressure condition, the moment you remove the pressure condition, now it goes back to being separate tetraons. So I was like, it made sense with the massless particles, those ideas. But then when I put them all together.
This is incredible because when you look at this basic science of accretion, right? If you take matter, if you take flour or small amounts of rocks and take them into orbit around Earth and then release them, they're going to naturally attract, and the pressure conditions are going to create an accretion disk, and that accretion disk is going to begin to spin on its axis, which is the formation of planets.
And that's all those waveforms returning back onto each other, returning back to each other. So it's like they're looking from the inside out and wanting something to come from in here. But I want to get to these 5 different pressure conditions that replace the platonic solids. You have a grand unified supersymmetry that don't exist. Here's where 4 bubbles meeting where 8 bubbles meeting where 6 bubbles meeting where the 12 is meeting. I put 5 of where the 12 coming together. They make natural star forms. I put 10 of them, and they create these natural icosahedrons when you put 2 of them on top of each other. I was like, this is the building blocks of the universe.
It's the building blocks of the universe. You're talking about the fractal matrix at the central of its core, unfolding this flower of life into multiple dimensions instead of a flat plane, and showing how you can build anything.
Anything.
Build a planet, a sun.
There's a video where we rebuilt the planet Saturn. Which I found very fascinating.
Very similar to the Mandelbrot set and fractal mathematics. But you're taking this flower of life, which I personally believe, my hypothesis on the flower of life is that's the face of God.
Bingo.
It's the face of God. Yeah. You want to see creation. You want to see the divine energy, where it's coming from. You want to see everything that exists in a known and unknown universe. Well, there it goes.
Watch this. This is us taking a basic physics simulator, the same simulator that they use at Princeton, at Oxford, that the students use at Harvard, and we put in a few massless particles. We didn't put any animation into it, nothing like that. And just ran the program with linchpins in their position. And just so the audience understand, linchpin is literally those 6 sides that come off of the tetraon. Each one of those ends up becoming a pentagonal shape based upon when it expands into a Mirrodal shape, or its feminine component, magnetism, or the contractive side or the electric side is the tetraon. But the middle ground between it is the linchpin. And so when we put those linchpins in rotation, this is what came up. So what we basically did is at all of these individual points, we put 4 linchpins into rotation with each other.
Gotcha. Now your massless particles, would that be the Higgs boson?
Those were just the massless particles. We put not massless particles. We put like 300,000 mass, particles inside it. I wasn't supposed to say massless. And these particles, just to give it rotation, and in the center of it, we gave it a harmonic, just an on and off harmonic, and allowing it to play itself out without us doing anything. But hitting play and letting it go through a few rotations of it, this is what it ends up generating. Let me go up a little further. There. Should start moving now.
Yeah.
But when we edit, you'll be able to play the whole thing through inside of there. Yeah. But it ultimately rebuilt the planet Saturn with its rings and the hexagon that's found at the top. And this is without animation.
Yeah.
This is without any fudgery or pushing.
Right.
And this is without gravity. Without dark matter, without dark energy, just using linchpins and the vortices in association, we were able to rebuild this planet the same way that I said we would do in that interview where you first, showed love to me when everyone else was like, he's crazy.
Right.
You understood that I was talking about a simulation and not building the planet Saturn, but with the right vortices and technology, we now have the ability to rebuild a planet based on these wave conjugations.
Right.
This is what it's able to do, and it's repeatable.
Yeah.
It's something that we put the entire description at the bottom of it of how this actually works, what it, but
it's incredible that it even creates the hexagonal shape at the top of Saturn.
At the top.
Which has been a big question mark.
Of how that came to be.
Right. But it's through the natural formation, through this process of the opening of this flower of life, the energy pattern that exists throughout the known universe, and involved in the accretion process of creating the planet, and then you get this shape, this formation.
If you look at this, I'll read this off, just so the audience will understand it. It says, the following models are gravity-free physics simulations and are not animations nor CGI graphics in the standard sense, as there are no keyframe animations present. All of the forces being used are externally applied vortexes only, and limited use of central or offset magnetic fields. There are no other internal attraction forces present in the simulation, meaning there are no gravity in there.
Yeah.
They are using emulated particles of specified masses in conjunction with specific externally applied forces, harmonic resonances, and emulated magnetic fields only. Everything that came from here came from just how nature would react to these vortices in relation. And this is without creating 96% imaginary material for the universe.
Yeah.
I mean, based on the scientific method, this should be the proper walk and should be considered. It should be being tested. I have it on my front page of my book with all of the things how we built the simulator or the simulation. But it was all based on linchpin, which is all still based on that tetrian.
Right.
And to have this prediction ability to rebuild a planet in itself, and they've never been able to do this without adding imaginary stuff. This is nothing but true physics tapped into it.
You're talking about tapping into the real God power. Now, that's what you're talking about doing, tapping into the God power. You're talking about right now we're a type 0 civilization. You skipped over type 1 and went straight to type 2 civilization, on the scale that they have for civilizations that could exist in the universe. And this is more like going into type 2. So you've really jumped past type 1.
We can manipulate the environment. So that means transmutation. If you can do this to an entire planet, you can do this to any element, and every element has a prime resonant frequency by which it bonds or breaks its bonds. Those prime resonant frequencies are easily discovered, through resonance. You can, through their light, the light forms, you can easily manipulate anything, but that becomes a threat because they've built their entire world off of inefficiency.
Yes. Everything is built off inefficiency. They monetize inefficiency. They monetize corrupt systems that don't function properly. Because if you have a system that doesn't function properly, at some point the system is going to break down completely, even though it wasn't working properly to begin with. And that creates the ability for them to generate another ineffective system. And we're living in a world full of ineffective systems where we're being monetized on insufficient systems that don't really provide what they're supposed to provide. They're not giving us the maximum capacity of efficiency that we should be getting.
No, they profit and monetize the expectation of loss, the expectation of falling and drowning. And they're like, we're going to save you at this point. We're going to save you at this point. But they have, and you put money into those bonds of saving, and you never get saved. They just put it off. They put off the salvation. They put off your ability for liberty. You know, when you'll be self-sufficient, they want you still at the nipple. And when you have the fundamentals, when you have the truth about you, you don't need any of that. Right. What we're able to do, I'm going to go to a screen again. Okay. Like with linchpins, one of the beautiful aspects is when 4 of them come together, you'll see what Tesla was talking about 3, 6, and 9. You'll see 1, 2, and then 3. Yeah. 3 of the shafts bond. Then the next one will be, you'll see 6 bond. Yeah. And they're about to make a magnetic bond. Yeah. And when I say magnetism or magnetic, I'm saying they're about to expand out. As you can see, it's expanding from the center. And now you'll see 9 come in. And when Tesla said, if mankind understood the magnificence of 3, 6, and 9, he'll have the keys to the secrets of the universe. You know, this doesn't happen by accident, and it repeats that same tetrahedral form when 4 of them come together. And then 8 of them will come to, or 4 of these will come together and still repeat the same pattern. Wow. That fractal pattern. And what's really beautiful and ties everything together, you'll see that all of them come around the tetrad. Yeah.
This is what sold me. This is what made me say, man, this guy figured out something that's so incredible, so dynamic. This is what should be on the mainstream news every night instead of the garbage that they've been feeding us. This is going to force science to rewrite books.
This is the fractal.
Yes.
This is 4 bonding. You know, this is a magnetic bond. Let me show you how electricity behaves. Now, instead of, and you've seen this, but for the audience, instead of 4, now electricity is a higher density, always has a higher density, and it's always seeking a higher pressure condition. So instead of these bonding at the edges, they are collapsing the dodecahedron in the center and generating energy. So it's a greater density, but smaller. It's a smaller space. But this is why electricity has so much power, because now that entire center that was here before, you can see how it has been ejected and collapsed, but this still makes the form of a tetrahedron. And these will keep bonding and making other structures, predictable structures.
Yeah. And this now at 5, does it have electromagnetic force?
It's all electric. It's more electrically expansive.
Gotcha.
You know, so, and they'll keep bonding with other 5s and other 5s. Yeah. And on the fringes, the 4s will balance themselves. But it's basically rebuilding the periodic table, atom for atom. Yeah. And when we place these in the solar apex, it predicted entire new relationships between stars and constellations. But it also predicts where every star will occur on the galactic plane, on the celestial plane, and the ecliptic plane. And if you look at the colors going across the edges of these struts, those represent the individual atoms that make up the periodic table. Wow. With carbon or hydrogen, carbon, and silicon and cobalt being on those center places, and then on the far edges of those, you'll have on the red side, you have your lithium, beryllium, boron, and then it just expands into the next octave, I mean, it's a concise story that's predictable and proven. Like, we were able to throw it in the chat GPT, because now they're calling this the Howard comma.
Right.
Like the Pythagorean comma. The Pythagorean comma is that portion of the periodic table. And if you watched on that Joe Rogan thing with Eric Weinstein, you'll see we were talking about the Pythagorean comma 109.47. Right. Eric was saying that was a mistake, you know, that I wasn't aware of. And I was like, no, you don't build 50 patents off of it with it being something you're unaware of. I was like, no, but it actually is an error correction code, because it allows, instead of them having the platonic solids, and what they love to do is divide the universe or the earth into cubicles. into cubes, and now make prediction based upon where these cubes are overlapping.
Right.
Whereas this is no longer based on the cube. This is actually based on those four corners that we were talking about. These four corners right here.
This is incredible. I mean,
this is the four corners that existed that the Bible was talking about. The center of the earth. In order for this to exist, there's a sphere in here, a sphere in here, a sphere in here, and a sphere in here. And these four spheres interacting are responsible for all effects of nature.
Right.
And how they respond when other things bond with them.
Right.
All of these things. And this is how we developed the linchpin. It was like, okay, well, they're not listening to it for its predictive value. So it was like, well, let's build it out and put props into those individual areas, and we'll invent tangential flight.
Right. Which I saw the tangential flight from you when we had our live, months ago. But can you pull that video up? Because that blew my mind.
Yes.
Because then I saw an application of the science. So it's one thing to have ideas, concepts, theories, but once you can see it being applied, it changes your concept and understanding of it completely.
Let's get it right here. Well, that's some of the patterns. I'm going to just pop it up here. We'll see a four bond of their use. Here's four of them coming together.
Yeah.
And out of the vortices, we've attached now arms. But the four of these will now come together and lift this 50-pound barrel.
Yeah.
And then five of them will come together and pick up the five collected barrels because of their collected thrust.
Right. This is a whole new form of flight.
Entirely new form of flight, tangential flight, the ability to fly around your own center of mass, something they've never been able to accomplish with just six props. But this was low-hanging fruit from the linchpin. I wasn't trying to build flight vehicles. I was just trying to prove, I was like, if this is the fractal, I said we should be able to put props in those pentagonal areas, and it should have tangential flight.
Right.
And the drone community hated me. They were like, how dare you hit us with something like this? And even though I made a gift for $25,000, a reward for anybody that was able to build the flight simulator with this, they were like, there were people that were saying, it's not possible to accomplish that. And within 2 weeks,
boom,
we had it done.
Yeah.
By putting it out into the universe. And now these five, so this is the end of cranes, or this will be able to greatly assist in how we do construction and lifting and bringing things home. And they're all autonomous.
This starts making you even ask questions like, could this technology have existed in the ancient past?
It had to.
Potentially help to build some of these megalithic structures.
It had to.
Yeah. Because you can lift an incredible amount of weight with this technology.
Any weight that you want.
Yeah.
And then you cut to, so those are some of the innovations that we've made in flight, but then you cut to what we've done in our propulsion systems. So this is the system and method for projectile propulsion. Now, what's interesting, instead of using any type of chemical propellant, what we've been able to do based on the geometry that we have is, you'll read it in the background. It's conventionally projectile weapons are powered by chemical potential energy that is converted into kinetic energy. For example, a conventional firearm round includes gunpowder, smokeless powder, or some other propellant that is ignited by a primer, which causes the propellant to deflagrate. Well, gases from the burning propellant becomes pressurized and expand, which push a projectile, such as a bullet or a slug, out of a firing chamber and through a bore of a gun barrel. While chemical-based projectile weapons have been the standard for hundreds of years, the small amount of propellant that can be practically placed in the small volume of the firing chamber limits the propulsive force that can be generated, and therefore limits the speed at which the projectile can be fired and the distance that the projectile can be shot. Well, the summary of this disclosure, and I'll just read this first paragraph. The present disclosure describes systems and methods for projectile propulsion where the propulsive force is applied by an electrically overloaded capacitor, which causes a portion of the capacitor to explode and generate an explosive propulsive force to propel a projectile with substantially more force and at a substantially higher speed than is achievable by conventional powder-based rounds. So we're basically able to take water and having it in a small chamber, and basically like if you were to think of an ice chest, if you were keeping ice, and you apply an electrical current, you can apply 1,000 volts through the same aperture that you can 1,000,000 volts.
Right.
And now with our geometry, that now is able to sustain that force. And since the water wants to evaporate at 1,700 times its normal volume, and it's unable to do that, now that becomes cubed. And so it immediately skips a gas state that it typically would go to, and it goes to a plasma state.
Wow.
And in that, it converts the gas state into a discharge, and it's basically lightning out of the barrel.
Gotcha.
So depending upon how much electricity you run in through one thimble of water, you can send something into space, or you can send it outside of the solar system. It's able to launch, and that's the goal, was for the linchpins to be launched into space.
Wow. So this would be something like riding a percussion wave. So is it something like you send the charge in and you create this expansion through this plasma, then you do it over and over again and it rides this?
Yeah, you put it on a sustained thing. But if you think about, I'll give one secret away.
Okay.
If you think about Victor Schauberg's example of the fluidity of how water is supposed to move, now you're able to get an internal interaction that's sustainable, and then you provide a way out.
Gotcha.
So we're able to, it's basically lightning out of the barrel. It's ray guns, and then we patented it as a gun, but not because we were trying to make guns. We wanted to prevent anyone else from being able to make it as a weapon.
Gotcha.
But there's nothing that can stop this.
No, the applications are almost endless. Even running a combustion engine
off of this.
Yeah.
So
you can push the cylinders. I mean, this is crazy.
So we're there with so many different innovations that has affected so many different fields.
Yeah.
And we have the proof, and it makes geometric sense.
Yeah.
The universe gave us the ability to recognize the genetic coincidence of symmetry, so we would know that something is healthy.
Right.
So that we know that it's safe, and we've lost that recognition that, the eyes should be around the same place, the nose should be in the right place. Therefore, that means that their organs are in the right place and it'll be healthy. Well, if we have the genetic or the symmetrical similarities and the harmony associated with this that registers in our eyes, it makes sense putting it together. Now we've innovated multiple fields with it. It should be explored. But when I went to the Black universities, because I was questioning 1 times 1.
Yeah, right.
I went to Morgan State and did an entire presentation. Wow. No one from the engineering department showed up. From the physics, from the chemical, from all that. We had to bus in students from outside to be there. And I shared these things there. But that was 5 years ago.
Yeah, wow.
In none of the Black universities. And so I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So now, because all of this stuff is patented, I don't have to share it.
Right.
With those universities that were unwilling. But what does that do to
Yeah.
Black people.
Yeah, it just holds us back even further. I mean, the opportunity was there. Sometimes we can't see the opportunity when it's standing directly in front of our face because we've been so systematically put into this mindset or this mental prison. And we want to follow the system exactly as it's been laid out for us. We've been institutionalized in that way from birth all the way through adulthood. So now here you come with the keys to the universe, and they're blind to it. It doesn't even exist in their eyesight. They can't even see it, even though you put it right in front of them.
And that's the most heartbreaking aspect of it. If I wanted to explore some of the magnetic field, even, and that's with the opposite of the linchpin. This is me expanding the linchpin out or the tetrahedron to its fullest place, and it become mirrored all shapes. But this is the magnetic field. This is predicting every particular waveform. Inside of this is a water hammer. It's a transmitter. It's a receiver. It's a
fractal of DNA almost to me. Incredible. Yeah.
We call it transcendental lighting. So what are we doing now?
Right.
Why are we still in this hidden space? I'm going to close this up now.
Yeah. Okay.
We don't.
I know you had touched on the error correcting codes, and they were talking about the Terry comma, which is kind of like a quantum error correcting code, right? So let's talk a little bit about the error correcting codes. For those people who don't know, I wrote a book called Fractal Holographic Universe, and in that book I use some of the science, or reference some of the science from Professor James Gates Jr., who really is a master in supersymmetry and theoretical physics. And he did some work on error correcting codes. He actually discovered these things called Adinkra codes.
Yeah.
Right? And these Adinkra codes, and you take these patterns, you put them into a three-dimensional space. There's this mathematics encoded into them, and these mathematics are called error correcting codes. What he discovered, though, these are the same codes that are running the universe, but also on the smaller scale, they're the same exact error correcting codes that run search engines and web browsers. So the universe as a whole is running on the same exact coding that we're using to run search engines and web browsers on our computers and phones.
Well, they're trying to, because one of the things Alan Watts said, the thing that takes us so long to gain an education is we look at the world and we take it all in as one big thing, one big picture. But when you're learning about the world, it's all laid out in these lines, and you've got to read each line on each page, and it takes so long for us to understand. We can't just go to the end of a book and pick it up and have the picture or see the overall picture of it. We have to go through all of these millions of miles of lines of information, because they've laid it out linearly and are no longer doing it based on how the universe does a whole grand picture. You're thrown right into the water and you become hyper aware of everything around you. That's how the universe is supposed to behave with it. So they'll have different patterns for, okay, we'll do it as a dodecahedron, and we'll have these, and they'll act like Feynman diagrams, and we'll try these out, and then we'll try the tetrahedrons together, but they'll only give us so much. And they were used to, when I was studying civil engineering, I remember there was an error correcting code for every 10 feet of rope that we had, or of measuring tape. We had to account for 1 inch of sag. And then we had to take into account the wind and if there were any weather conditions on it. But these error correcting codes would kind of give us an approximation, but it still never gave us what the linchpin and these wave conjugations are able to bring in.
Perfection. And so the point I was trying to get to was that with the quantum error correcting code, which is what I love the name, the Howard comma, it's a good name. I mean,
I'm just hoping that I'm doing the research to see if Howard is my true last name, or if it was the name of a plantation.
Okay.
If it was the name of the plantation that my family was disenfranchised and owned at, then it won't remain the Howard comma.
I understand that. I get that. Trust me. But what's interesting is, though, I looked up some science, and I want to read directly from what I was able to pull up based on putting your information into the database and seeing what this system would spit out as to what are some of the potential inventions or revolutions that could come from the QECs. And what I found was just amazing. And we'll talk about this a little bit too. We'll talk about maybe some of these and just expand on them. Like the first one is faster than light communications.
Yeah.
FTL communications. We're talking about quantum entangled communication. Leveraging the Howard comma as a natural quantum error correction tool, this FTL communication system could enable instantaneous long-distance messaging by keeping the quantum state stable over vast distances. And that's really been one of my dreams, actually, is to be involved in some kind of way creating this, or being involved in a company building a quantum communications device. I brought this up to you before I even knew you were going to send me that science that you sent me the other day.
Yeah, and we didn't, this Chris Seeley put into, there was a paper recently written, I'll get the name of it. In the paper, they were comparing the Pythagorean comma to the Howard comma, or what they're calling the Howard comma, and showing that they were two separate things, but that it actually pulled it together. So he pulled this into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT began to rebuild the universe, or have a picture of laying out a framework for universal potential under different conditions. And it came up with this Howard comma, this error correcting code that is able to do faster than light travel. Like one of the biggest things that would be a hindrance in faster than light travel is you got to go through different areas of the universe where there's noise. And in that noise, based on their uncertainty, understanding, and Schrodinger equations in which they try to the probability effect of those things, where they're trying to understand the universe, and it's through canceling out what might have happened instead of being able to go directly to the source. Like in Star Trek, Scotty came up with the ability to do transwarp.
Yeah, they go through a transwarp. So the Borg gave them the idea, I think, in one of the season's episodes of a different version of Star Trek.
That you can be at warp drive and still be able to transform or whatever. I forgot what that's good. Beam me up, to be able to beam, at transwarp.
Right.
That was a big theory
teleportation
in there. I'm like, oh well, we're the means by which quantum entanglement takes place. It's being able to lock into another particle or another position. You lock this spaceship into here. You lock it with this particular tone, and now the linchpin, or the Howard comma, is able to keep communication, and is able to predict where this particular object or particle will be, and be able to maintain subspace communication. It doesn't matter the speed at which it's traveling at, or its position, or what field it's going through. It's able to predict all distribution of matter.
It's beautiful.
It doesn't get, I don't care what they've been doing in these universities. None of it comes up to this. If I'm going to throw modesty aside. It doesn't come up to this. This is the fractal.
This is it.
This is the entire subspace of, we have defined the electric force, the gravitative force, the contractive force of the universe, the micro, and patented it, and have proven out subsystems in it. We've defined the magnetic expansive force, and have patented those, and have built systems on it, and have proven them out. And we've patented the common factor, the constitution between it, which is the linchpin, which creates its own thing. It's like, this is the gift that mankind has been waiting for.
This is it.
But what do they do with it? They will keep kicking it to the side until I'm no longer here, and they'll think they'll walk through it. I didn't tell them what the true value of pi was. There's a lot of things that I've left out. Because I did something different from what Tesla did. Tesla made the mistake of writing everything in Serbian or in English and all of his notes, so they can go and do his stuff.
They went and took it all.
When this came to me, I created an entirely new language for it, that me and my family and the people that work closely with me, all of the secrets are tied into there.
Oh, wow.
Pi is a whole number. Pi is not 3.141592653589 793. That's not the value of pi. Pi is a whole number.
Oh, wow.
And if they understood that the universe does not multiply because a confined space is not able to multiply, the way the universe multiplies is by dividing and becoming more.
It continues to divide
it
over and over again.
divides itself.
Big, giant, gas clouds divide themselves and become stars. And then those stars eventually live their life and they explode and it divides again and it creates more gas, which then the gas then forms into more stars and more solar systems.
And contract together and keep recontracting itself together. So we have to revisit our understanding of multiplication, because multiplication, that means it would go against the laws of conservation of energy if it's not truly just division. And so I've approached mathematics from that number theory idea and concept, and look at what it's produced. It's produced all of these things. It's
And to me, I mean, just thinking, and I could be wrong on this, but if the universe, as the way they describe it, seems to violate the law of conservation of energy if it continues to grow and expand with no new energy coming in, because you're violating. Like if I try to make a perpetual motion machine that runs off of only magnets, there's only so much power I can get out of it.
It has to interact with something else.
It has to.
And so our universe expands out like our solar systems expands out in the Oort cloud, and it bumps into other solar systems, which regenerated. And then when four of them come together at 120-degree angles, then guess what? They convert back from magnetism and expanding into an electric charge. And now they're going from southwest to now they're going northeast, and they're headed back to the poles of the star and the poles of the planets to go back into the process again. That's the breathing mechanism of our universe.
Yeah, because the universe is alive.
It's a living being.
It's a living being.
We're little creatures on this living being that's like, you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, just like we have bacteria in our gut that's alive. We have
mating.
Right? I mean, we have microscopic bugs on our skin,
that's keeping us clean from the monsters. We have macrophages inside of our spleen and our blood system that attack any cell that's not up to par and eats it alive. And that's why fasting, if you have some kind of cancer or illness, a tumor, the body will cannibalize itself for anything that's non-useful.
Yep, that's a fact.
If you're suffering from all of this stuff, the potential gifts for humanity with vaccines, if you're suffering any of that stuff, all you have to do, take the time, fast, and allow those blood clots themselves to have to be eaten by the body.
Yeah.
But you have to be willing to go through the desperation of not eating for 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
Force the body to turn on new genes.
Yeah, and I'm a witness to what happens. I didn't eat for a couple of weeks, and I lost 22 pounds. My body cannibalized itself, but I reset everything.
And you're all clear again.
I'm all clear. I'm completely reset. And completely, in a weird kind of way. It was I can't say this is a great thing that happened to me, but
everything's a blessing.
Health-wise, yes, it's one of the greatest things that happened to me health-wise, because I feel completely renewed. I have a fresh start. Physically.
Same.
It's incredible.
Same.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about one of the other aspects that it said with the quantum entanglement, what it's capable of ultimately doing. The conclusion was the Howard comma could be modeled as this is what ChatGPT said.
Yeah.
This is not me putting words into it. This is them analyzing the patterns, analyzing the linchpin, analyzing the geometry and the grand unified supersymmetry associated with it and its potential uses. It says, the Howard comma could be modeled as a sub-quantum field constant that acts as a harmonic and geometric correction across quantum fields. By stabilizing and aligning quantum states, it could provide a foundation for faster than light. Wow, faster than light.
Yeah.
Faster than light, subspace communication through non-local interactions and harmonic resonances.
Yeah. That's life-changing, because now you can have deep space travel. Because one of the biggest problems is, let's say we hop on a spaceship and we're using conventional rocketry and we get ourselves all the way out to Jupiter and we want to communicate back with home base on Earth. That's going to take a long time. It could take a month.
They'll be bouncing it in their straight line ideas in comparison to staying entangled.
Exactly.
And harmonically locked and linked.
Yes. And the only delay you'll have in communicating with Earth is how much time did it take your ship to broadcast to the nearest communications array. So if you're only, 2 million miles away from a communications array, a few minutes for them to get the signal, instantaneously transmit it to Earth, instantaneously transmit it back to the communications array, 8 minutes to get back to your ship or whatever the number is. So yeah, it's just, it's a way of really making deep space travel a reality.
Well, because we go past the noise. The noise occurs in the magnetic field, in the expansion of it. The noise occurs in the spheres interacting, in those spheres that we are interacting with. We call those the electron cloud. That's the noise that's getting in the way. So if you could get to the electric side of it, which these pathways, the linchpin, those struts show you the direction of the electric side. So you're able to bypass that noise and stay, because magnetism is always out here. That's noisy. The electricity is going to be right here in the center. Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
Right there. And so everything becomes possible. If you apply these things, there's no field of human interest or endeavor that cannot be benefited from having the fundamentals, re-examining the fundamentals. So I keep asking universities out there that care about having a future, take the time to explore these things. If you explore them and you want to have a conversation, then we can talk about licensing, and we'll make you the most powerful university on the planet, because everyone else will have to come to you in order to get that. But it'll be on the first come, first serve.
Right.
You know, now it's no longer just open to the Black universities that I was hoping would come and support. You know, I have to now step outside, but if they don't want to explore it, then we are producing linchpin. We are producing our lives. We are producing the harmonic wave resequencer, you know, as we speak. We have my people working on all of this stuff. So you just won't be a part of the future if you don't apply yourself to the present. And get away from that past garbage that we've been taught.
Everybody can't go.
No, they can't.
The problem with some of these universities is they get their funding, these engineering, these science, they get the funding, and their funding is based off of speaking the same old-fashioned dogma. And once they go one iota out of the parameter of what they've been told they can stay in, they get the threat of losing funding. But people have to realize that there's other people out there that are interested in funding and being a part of something innovative and change in the world. We have to let go of this safety box mindset, staying inside the box and being safe, and think outside of the box. And that's where all the joy and the bliss is, when you start maneuvering through the universe and walking your true power and let go of the fear. The best part of life is on the other side.
Yeah, and it's like Stanford University and its relationship with Hewlett-Packard, because it has a self-sustaining endowment. Stanford is able to move, with ubiquitous carelessness, because they have their own funding coming from the products that they're producing. And they've been able to accomplish this with fundamentals that are now basically becoming antiquated.
Yeah.
If you're able to accomplish that, so imagine what a university will be, an engineering school and department will be able to do with these things. You won't need the government funding. You won't need to answer to anyone except to truth. And that's where we should be right now. But the truth is it's a hot thing to hold, or cold. I think the truth is really cold, and you can't keep it next to you unless you come down.
Yeah, I believe it, man. Another invention that came out of the ChatGPT, even putting your science into it, holographic data storage retrieval. So they're saying that the Howard comma could allow for holographic error correcting codes, enabling data to be stored in a higher dimensional holographic subquantum field.
Well, instead of it being laid out linearly and binary, and binary communication, and that's how I said it's so much information.
Line by line by line.
Line by line, you're able to now lay it according to a grid. There's 12 panels on the linchpin. Those 12 panels will also immediately resonate to the 12 tones in music theory. So you're able to use musical theory and layer information, fold it together the way the universe folds it together, to where you just create vortices instead of these long extended lines. So it's not like something needs to be developed or explored. No, the information is right there. The Howard Comma, the equation for it has already been written out and created.
Yeah.
Now it's just applying it.
So you're talking about storing data in a volume versus storing data in a line.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's looking at something and hearing that thing for the moment and not for all of this unnecessary movement.
Right.
Catching it right here and containing it back into the seed that expands out. And like Lorentz, one of the things he talked about was his electron model. And the problem with it, he thought the electron started as a sphere, and then it began to become expanded out. It to turn into an oval the further away it got out. But the truth was the electron, or that cloud, starts off in compression as like those petals on the flower of life.
Right.
Like there's a guy, Michael Evans, who a contemporary of mine, who was working on opening the flower, and he had the tetron ray, the trion ray, which was those petals. But that's how an electron behaves at the start under high pressure. It goes into the low pressure that it expands out as a sphere. So when we're able to take high pressure information from high pressure states and lock them into a system where they're refracted within the entire system. And that's what this does. It allows you for those 12 different spaces to where the information is just basically stored in a crystal of water.
Yeah.
It's stored in the water itself. Like John Keeley, his water didn't make the machine work. The water and the machine would work together and find a sympathetic harmony and then be able to multiply its interaction or potential. That's what we need.
Talking about combining hardware with molecular.
Yes,
the two go together.
The two life forms, because like if you want to multiply, this fraction by this fraction, you have to make them dimensionally equal.
Yeah.
So you find the life force in each one. The life principle is represented in its prime resonant frequency. Then you will find common factors by which they can interact.
Right.
And that's one of the things that the Howard Comma does, is it lays out those interactions, or where those vortices meet, and those are those common areas.
And it keeps a stable connection between them. And this is powerful stuff. Wow. Another one, quantum subspace navigation. So it says, using the Howard Comma as a guide through subspace, this navigation system would allow a spacecraft to detect and compensate for variations in space-time, making it viable for interstellar exploration. It could also be used as an advanced quantum sensor to ping subspace layers, detecting gravitational anomalies or other cosmic events in real time.
Well, again, it's just laying out a framework.
Yeah.
Depending on the condition, the pressure conditions, whether it's the motion and pressure conditions of a given area, you can either take different ratios of the Howard Comma and break them down into the Tetrian, into the Huntian, into the Aubrian, into the heavenly, or some of these other aspects of it. But you're able to predict where the matter will distribute based on its density and the conditions. And then, but it also takes into account, like the linchpin, you don't have it just going in one direction linearly. It goes in all directions, expanding volumetrically the way the universe behaves. So it predicts all the same volumetric similarities. So you're able to predict where this will go. Like if you want, I'll give a secret away. If you wanted to travel from here to the other side of the galaxy, you can use a lot of propellants, you can use a lot of time, or all you have to do is behave like a bubble does. If it's in opposition to the environment it's in, it's going to seek a place where it has equanimity and balance. So it's going to rise on its own. You wrap yourself in the key of that other galaxy. Or the edge of that galaxy. You wrap yourself up in that vibration. Guess what? You don't need to use any energy except maintaining that vibration. And the universe will move you over here, because if you're at a tone that is discordant to the area you're in, you will have that Magnus effect of a bubble, and you can move yourself based on taking on tone and taking off tone. That's the secrets that's been given to us. And now we have the geometry that predicts those tones.
Right.
And now we have the applications for it and building them. It's predictable. That's where we need to be walking towards.
Yeah, that's powerful, man. I just want to live long enough to see some of this stuff happen because it's incredible. Then we have the, okay, well, here's something interesting. We're talking about 0-point energy now. Resonance-based power generation. By utilizing the harmonic corrections from the Howard commas within a sub-quantum field, it might be possible to generate power through resonance with a 0-point energy or space-time harmonic.
Well, think about how resonances behave, or that S term.
Yeah.
You know, it's actually a full vortice that's happening. So it's pushing up, and then and if this is pushing up, you create this energy. Like they do something like that with the harp.
Yeah.
The harpo.
Harp,
it's called harp.
They have that in on the west coast of the United States.
Yeah, and they send these microwaves up and create a big bubble on the surface of the earth. That bubble gets hit by particles, and it brings it back into the earth's environment. Well, that's the same way, but now we're doing it on a microscopic level. But we're not doing it with microwaves. We're actually doing it with the dopamine that the universe likes.
Wow.
We're not forcing it with heat. We're bringing it with the shape that it wants. So you draw in energy by creating the condition here.
Correct.
Then the snapback is going to keep a flow of energy. And then you put that on its own resonance, on its own repeating timer.
Right.
And you're able to generate an untold amount of energy. Like even with the projectile propulsion pattern, we're getting 180% out of it, which is over unity.
Yeah.
So no matter what charge we put in there, we're multiplying its potential. Wow. Proven.
Yeah.
It's already proven. That's why the patent was granted.
Yeah, yeah.
So now I'm just like, oh, wow, do I have to go to other countries in order to bring these things to light, you know? Or will my parent country support the steps, that the innovation? Because I'm not going to just sit it quietly and relegate myself to just being some actor, turning tricks for, turning emotional tricks for tips.
I understand. I get it. I understand what you mean.
It's enough of that.
Yeah. And in what you just said, talking about the shape, helping to generate that energy wave, scientists did experiments with pyramids, tetrahedrons. And they found that if you put plants and grow plants inside of a tetrahedron shape, the plants grow faster because it harnesses more energy, more natural energy from the universe.
Resonant energy that's going back and forth, that oscillatory thing that's always happening, that thing we feel in here and makes us connect, but then we're told, nope, you got to look away. You can't connect with people. You can't stay locked in.
Yeah.
When you allow yourself to align geometrically properly with individuals and you talk from the place of God, then God speaks.
Right. Absolutely. Another one, they said, quantum-based cosmic internet. So we have the World Wide Web, but they're talking about the cosmic web, right? So they say an interconnected web of quantum communication channels stabilized by the Howard comma, enabling near instant data transfer between planetary systems. We can be on Mars and instantaneously get something off Google from here.
And if we can get that information as traveled through electricity, then that electricity can also be transformed or collected together, and it's the doorway for teleportation.
Right.
At the end of the day, if you can send the sound, you can send the image. If you can send the image, you can send the condition. If you can send the condition, you can send the person.
Yeah. Well, because the Howard comma can predict. Is it the Howard comma that's predicting? That's the error correcting.
No, the Howard comma, actually, it's like if we put, like I said, you put the linchpin in the solar apex, it predicts every star on the galactic, the celestial, and the ecliptic plane. So it's actually predicting where those stars are going to be, and therefore you can predict where the moons are going to be. Now you can predict where other planets are going to interact with it, and you can have a full model and know where every atom is going to. That's what's been given to us.
That's the key. So in teleportation, the secret is you have to know where every atom is, its
and
spin rate and its vibration, so that now if you have the cosmic internet or the capability of doing that, you have an enormous, unlimited amount of storage capacity, which is the biggest problem in teleportation. We can only teleport like one particle at a time right now. But all of a sudden, if you can predict in a biological human being or even an animal, right? Or even this table where every atom is in the resonant frequency of that atom and transmit that instantaneously. Now you can teleport a person, a table, a building, a house, anything you want.
Well, because you're not breaking it down into individual particles. You're actually wrapping the entire system. And that entire system slips into the in-between spaces. That system, the vibratory force, you can't distinguish where it's at anymore. And so it takes the smallest position. Even though it's still vibrating and covering this entire space of who you are right here, but you're only seeing it having this effect. It's just an illusion of our size of where we are.
Gotcha.
So when you let go of that illusion, now you're able to generate anything in any place that you want. And those particle replicators, all of that is true.
Yeah.
You know,
replication and everything. Which would free the world. You're talking about 0-point energy, which means everybody has power right where they are. No need for a power grid. Teleportation, taking the pressure off of travel, right? You're talking about food replication. You're having food directly where you are, instantaneously having access to food, bypassing the whole system of these patented seeds and all this GMOs
you
and everything
recreate
else.
the condition for them. That's
Exactly.
all you have to do with transmutation. Recreate the condition of this particular element. You don't need to have gold inside or silver inside of your electronics. All you have to do is create the condition of them, and therefore have the electronics carry themselves over. The electrical charge or the signal will carry itself over if you know how to create the condition. And that's a bit of tongue-in-cheek right now. I'm not letting all of that out.
And I get it, man. Well, this is a great conversation. This is just mind-blowing. Just a conversation I've wanted to have for a long time.
I know.
A long time.
I just got a question for you.
Go ahead, man.
What was, when you first stepped out and started questioning the conditions and the information that you had been taught, when you first started questioning that, what was the response from your family?
Oh man, it wasn't good. My initial response, well, my mother understood everything. She got it. Now, I wasn't giving her a lot of deep knowledge yet because I was very young, but she was open to whatever I was telling her. Little things that I was seeing and begin to question. She was, look into it, or, advanced beings exist. She didn't say alien. Advanced beings exist.
Yeah.
But outside of my mother, everyone else thought I was just crazy. They didn't believe it. They questioned it. They were scared of it. Some of my kids were scared of the information, scared of what I was saying, what I was learning, what I was researching. I've had family members tell me that I was worshiping Satan and I was going to burn in hell and I wouldn't make it to paradise. So some of them were Jehovah's Witnesses.
My family were Jehovah's Witnesses.
Okay, so that it's paradise, not heaven. So I would, so I was when I was building this Fort Terra Nova project, this underground base back in the 2000s, early 2000s. I was told that it's just all Satan and devil worship and all this kind of stuff. And anything that I questioned or anything that I perceived to be different or came up with a different hypothesis or thesis on it, it was all scoffed. It was, it was pretty bad. It took some time, but my oldest daughter and my youngest son resonated to it more. Now, our son that we have, he's only 12 now. He resonates with everything we're talking about. So out of the 6 kids, 3 are resonating. The other 3 aren't really resonating. But my relatives, my siblings, I should say, my siblings, no.
No, you're still the devil to them.
Oh yeah, I was told that I must have sold my soul to the devil, and all the. But I'm always good when they need some money, though. When they need some money, I'm always good. The money's good. The devil money's always good when they need the money.
Yeah, and then they thank Jehovah for you giving them the money. It's a fascinating little world, but. Like, I felt guilty because I'm the one that helped my brothers become a Jehovah's Witness. I talked to them about it, and it did teach me a lot about finding the truth, but I wanted to go deeper. I wanted to go to the very truth. And in looking at some of the doctrine and the information, it wasn't at the source. It wasn't the source. It was maybe a 4th or 5th rendition of some source material, but I wanted to see the source code. And you have to dig for that yourself. And Walter Russell said it, the universe she's a very jealous, nature is a very jealous God. And she only reveals her secrets when you are alone and in private with her in your soul. So it's like you've got to get to that place and reconnect with the universe. You don't need information from anyone else. I told you. Half of these things, I would wake up in my dream and I would go back to that place where the older version of myself who was talking to me, so there's an interaction between who you are now, who you will become, and who you have been in the past, because we think about where we were. So we keep the past in there instead of locked into the future. But whatever that being was, whatever that condition that was taking place within me, that allowed for an older version of myself to come and give me guidance at 4 and 5. And it was basically the guidance to follow. You don't need their information. I'm going to give you the ability to wake up inside your mind, go to the Akashic record, and the proof will be in the patents. The proof will be in the innovations. The proof will be in the products. And the proof will also be in your nature. My nature, even though I've played so many bad guys, like I will take my time and will not kill anything in my house. I call the fly while it's trying to land someplace, even though my wife wants me to kill it because it could spread germs. I'm just calling it Terry, because I know Terry doesn't want to be locked inside this house and doesn't want to get hit with this fly swatter. I know Terry's looking for a way out.
Yeah.
Come on, Terry, just be still. And I put that energy out, and 9 times out of 10, I'm always able to capture it and take it outside, and and I feel this weight lifted off of me, because they walk in there thinking that everything's going to be fine and exploring. They don't know it's a death trap. And they don't want to destroy your food. They're just trying to cooperate and coexist with us. So we have to start recognizing, an ant lives for 15 years on average. When you smash one of them, you're destroying great relationships. So it's taking everything into account. When you're aware of the universe is aware of you. When you ignore the universe, then you no longer exist to the universe itself. But the moment that you look at it, the universe looks back and smiles.
It's a mirror, and it's a mirror of your energy too. Absolutely. And I try to tell people that, because we know that through the double slit experiment that electrons are conscious, because they make conscious decisions to collapse themselves into digital bits of matter or become waves of potential. That means that everything is conscious. And if everything is conscious, then we have to treat everything with a certain level of respect and dignity and grace. That's exactly what you're talking about. Imagine teaching your kids from the time they're born that their clothes, their backpack is conscious.
Everything's alive.
Everything's alive. And if they understood that, and you taught them respect and dignity towards those things, they wouldn't disrespect their toys, their clothes, and others, because they'd be brought up believing that everything is alive.
Everything is, and not just alive, everything is made from the Creator and is the foundation and the fabric of the Creator. So when you disrespect anything, you are disrespecting yourself. It's like putting a cigarette out on your own hand or arm just because you don't have the ability to feel it.
Right.
You lack that ability to feel it. Maybe you should work on your senses so that you can become aware of the things that you're supposed to be taking in. And that's what the meditation is supposed to do. But when we're unaware of where we've come from, when we're unaware of where we're going, then we can't find a destination that we want. Like right now we have, we're putting a foundation together for the museum. It'll be the Black History Inventors Hall of Fame Museum. The first museum that's ever been dedicated to just Black inventors and our massive contributions to the world we live in. Whereas other races, they have so many of their idols and their ancestors that they can turn to look for guidance and say, you know what, I can become an astronaut. You know what, I can become I can become a neuroscientist. Because such and such did this, I can make this innovation. Black people, oftentimes, all that's presented in front of us, I can become this pimp. I become this drug dealer. I can become this athlete. I can become this rapper. And we see where that whole...
That's what we're shown over and over and over. And the programming goes in and your brain says, oh, this is what I can be. This is the pinnacle of what I can get to. Not realizing that there's so much more.
No.
And it's only because we don't see ourselves in those other positions on a consistent basis that we don't believe we can do those things.
Yeah, like if you think about Lewis T. Lattimore, they actually called him, he's an inventor from the 1870s, 1800s. He ended up working for Edison as a draftsman, but then he filed a patent for the carbon filament, which is responsible for the sustaining light that Edison received his patent for the light bulb. Edison got a patent for the spark.
Yeah.
But the sustenance of that carbon filament, that was produced by Lewis Howard Lattimore. He was the one that has the patent on it, but you'll never see anything mentioned. And just knowing that as an idea, or that the brakemen, you know, Elijah Woods, half of the things that he was able to accomplish, all of these men of that has been obscure to our visual parameters, so we can't attach a sight to him and say, no, I'm going to hold on to this one and I'm going to follow the course that this one led me through. We're missing that.
Yes, yes. And we need it. We significantly need it. You know, when I go a lot of places, because I'm 6'4", a lot of people, you know, did you play basketball? You know, did you play football? What do you do for a living? I tell them, I'm a scientist. I'm a scientist. That's what I tell people. And you got, just to see the look on a lot of these people's faces when you first tell them that, they're like, huh? A scientist? Like, they're completely shocked. So like, this black guy just told me he's a scientist. You know, you can see it in their face, in their eyes.
There's only one black scientist. That's Neil deGrasse.
Right. And so I love doing that because, you know, people will put you in a box. You got, my thing is to show people like, no, there's so many other things we can be doing. And this is one of them. You know, when I first got into this whole field of, you know, the knowledge business, if you want to call it that, I went out to go to these conferences, and a lot of the conferences, these conscious conferences, they didn't have any people of color. I was the only one. And how did I get in? I literally was contacting them every single year for 3 years until finally they said, okay, come on in. We'll give you a small room and give you a room that doesn't charge any money and see how you do. And when I did it, the room was not only sold out, standing room only. And I did a great lecture, and I used that DVD and sent it to another conference and another conference. So all these conferences that had only white faces speaking on these topics that we speak on in science and metaphysics and manifestation and ancient civilizations, all of a sudden I began showing up in all these conferences as the only person of color. And initially, the programming code in the minds of our people is, you know, who'd you sell out? How'd you sell out to get in here? And how come you're the token black person? Instead of seeing me and going, this is great, man, somebody to represent us and, you know, to put forth, show that we have knowledge too in these areas, the initial response, it's changed over time, but the initial response was negative. So I watched it go from a very hard negative response initially to then them getting more comfortable seeing me consistently building and building and building. Now it's becoming accepted. So what that showed me was, the more you see this, the more we continue to see it, the more we accept it, the more we believe it's possible. In the beginning, they didn't even believe it was possible.
No, but you see what you expect.
Yeah.
You know, there's an old saying, you'll never see Paris unless you take it with you. You have to have an expectation of what you're going to see there, and then you fulfill that expectation, or it exceeds that expectation, or it doesn't live up to your expectation. But you have to have an idea of where you're going. So for young men and women, if I had known about black inventors, but the fact that I didn't know about these black inventors, that's one of the things that drove me to, like, I'm going to make the biggest impact in the world of science that's ever been made. I said in my mind when I was a kid watching the cosmos that I was going to discover that grand unified field equation. I was going to do that. I was going to do that. And I spent every minute working towards it. I'm still spending it. And the only other thing I'm working towards now, because I'm great with that, I've accomplished that. I'm still trying to use my telekinesis. I'm still trying. Every day I spend at least a couple minutes trying to move something with my mind.
That's good, though.
I'm trying to.
That's good,
I haven't succeeded yet in this place, but you know, that's what I'm working on now. I'm like, God, you've given me this knowledge. You know, now give me the ability to make magic as I choose to. You know, I would love those little bitty things now, and no longer outside seeking what was out there. It's just you know, having moments like this of us being able to share and, you know, and grow. But like what we're doing with the museum now, like James Howard, they've put together a Kickstarter to raise money, you know, so that we can set this museum in place. I would love to leave that, you know, for anyone out there that want to encourage young minds, you know, of any color. To go through there, because I was inspired by Einstein and Niels Bohr, you know, and Feynman. I was inspired by all of these people that were not of my color. You know, but how much more so when I see someone of my color, when I saw you out there for years making that hard stand, you know, all I could do was just applaud. And then when I first came on the red carpet and talked about the stuff and you popped out and said, no, I think he's having an enlightening moment. That's what I think is taking place. Whereas everybody else was, oh, he's going crazy. He's going to rebuild Saturn. You know, well, bitch, I just rebuilt Saturn. Excuse my language.
It's okay.
I just rebuilt the
it's real though. It's real, man.
There, you know?
Yeah, it's real. I get it, man. You know, and like I was saying earlier, it's for what we do. It just takes a lot of courage. I mean, you know, a lot of people, they don't try to expand outward because they feel the pressure going to be so great on them, and they're going outside the boundaries of what the majority are saying they're allowed to do and not to do. But thankfully, people like ourselves are outside of the programming code.
We're free.
Yeah, we're free, man. It's free, completely free.
It's nothing like being free. Like when they so-called gave us emancipation or freed us, you know, no, you would free us when we have received the compensation that would have been paid to our ancestors so that we can move forward. We're still standing outside the gates. Okay, well, we worked for you for 400 years. What do we get for all of this? You know, do we get to pass and say, oh yeah, greatly, we gave you freedom when you've enriched yourselves off of all of the work that we've done? Now, I've got an idea. Since the Jews have received their reparations from Germany, I believe Germany's still paying reparations to the descendants of
they're still paying
of those people. We've paid reparations to the Japanese in the internment camps. We've paid reparations to the Chinese that was misused on the railroads. We've paid, I believe, or I think they're working on it, but we paid reparations for the Native Americans.
Yes, we have.
You know, but for the descendants of slaves that actually built this country, that built Wall Street, you know, the first thing that was traded on Wall Street was bonds for about black people, about slaves. Those were the first publicly traded things on Wall Street.
Facts.
So if we've enriched this country for 400 years and you don't have the money, there's a thing called the Brattle Group, independent statistics organization that did an evaluation on African Americans or the descendants of slaves. And they said that it's over 108 to 131 trillion dollars that's owed to the descendants of slaves.
Wow.
Now, we don't make that in 10 years.
No.
Our country does not have that money free to pay out.
GDP.
So they're never able to pay us. So since they have built their entire country off of our labor for 400 years without any type of compensation, the only thing that I would think would be fair is for the next 400 years or 500 years or however long it's been, the descendants of slaves should not have to pay any taxes.
Yeah.
And now the African American community becomes an opportunity zone where other communities can now invest in, and you can grow. And it's the same tax credit that has been given to states that allow for a lot of innovation and money to come in to the states for filming and for production. We are able to do that. And since we so-called only make up 13% of the population, which I find very strange.
That's a small
that black
number.
people only make up 13% of the American
impossible,
population.
but if it is, that's a small amount of money. If you don't pay taxes, it's not that much money.
It's 13% you lose, and you'll gain at 1,000-fold.
Yes,
you know, for a reasonable approach to solving these problems. You know, like I'm sitting here watching them in their elections this year. What are they talking about?
Oh, garbage. It's look, he said this and she said that, and it's like I'm watching two elementary school kids at the playground fighting. Who's standing on business? Who's coming with real concepts, ideas, solutions to problems? Nobody. It's about tit for tat and propaganda.
Yeah, it's like they're voting for a homecoming king or queen.
It's crazy.
And that's our world right now. We're at a point where trillions and trillions of dollars are about to be sent back here as a result of the BRICS and their continued influence and growth. The petrodollar is no longer based on the U.S. dollar. Half of them are trading in other dollars. And so all of the billions of dollars and trillions of dollars that's been sent to these countries to cover their indirect form of exchange with the U.S. dollar, they're sending their money back here, and we don't have the money to pay for it. This country doesn't have the money. So we're facing the potential of an inflation like that which hit Venezuela and collapsed that country. We're not like Iceland, where we have our own energy that's coming from and our own source of water, where we can recover from a gigantic fall like they were able to. So we need to come together and think about innovation now and to insulate the U.S. and grow it again. And with this, you can set an example for the rest of the world for them to make their way into this.
That's a fact. That's a great idea and a great
concept.
concept.
Solve their problems.
It's a beautiful concept and a great idea. I hope somebody is able to hear this and pick that up and act on it, somebody in a position of power. And as far as the museum, we're going to make sure we have the links. Make sure you guys click those links and support this museum. It's an incredible concept. I've already been one of the supporters of this museum. I'm excited about it. I'm looking forward to it. And I'm looking forward to manifesting the day that it actually opens.
Yes, we're going to do a big gala, to raise funds for it, I think around April, sometime towards the end of April. But we're working tirelessly just to keep this knowledge in front of our children so they are encouraged to make bigger strides than just on TikTok. Make a difference. Come do more than what I've done. I don't know if you can do that because you got to beat the fractal. But finding other applications for this geometry, I was just given I'm a geometer. I was given that. I'm not the person that will be able to make all of these applications that ChatGPT predicted. That's in the hearts and minds of other people out there. But I'm hoping that we're presenting tools that
we're creating a spark. Like Tupac said, you're going to be a spark in the mind that's going to change the world. And you're becoming a spark in the mind that's going to change the world. Someone out there at some point in time, when divine time is appropriate, is going to look into and research these concepts and is going to come up with an innovative idea or an invention that's going to help begin to change the world, or is going to connect with you to help work with your projects and build something out, whether it's in a university or a government. It's going to happen because it has to happen.
Yeah, well, I'm waiting for that. But in the meanwhile, we're building the linchpins. We're working on the harmonic wave resequencer. We're building this new simulators, and we're expanding. We're turning the wave conjugations into toys.
Nice.
With some books coming out called Why does a bubble take the shape of a ball? Why not a square or a triangle? And then there's another book called What Came First, the circle, the triangle, or the square? Because I want to now reach the youth and giving them these tools in which to develop their understanding and imagination of the universe. Oh my God.
Oh, wow.
The future looks bright.
Yes, absolutely. And we'd love to have you, man, on Forbidden Knowledge TV to begin to teach. Maybe we can come up with some kind of concept. We'll talk off here.
I would love that. And there's people that I talked to. I just did Demystify Science.
Okay.
An episode of Demystify Science with Anastasia and Michael, two beautiful scientists that took a deep dive and evaluated the wave conjugations and all those things. And I actually talked to them about possibly connecting with you and coming on and having a show on your platform because I believe in it. I believe the forbidden knowledge, and I would love. I've got to now go talk to my boss, my wife, and because that's something that I would really want to do, and I'd love to be on a consistent basis, encouraging, our people. And our people is everyone that is consciously a part of it. Like I mentioned earlier, I don't want to be a Homo sapien anymore. I want to be Homo superius.
Yes, I love it.
Because we have a superior mentality, a superior emotional connection and empathy for the universe. And I'm no longer that Homo inferius that does not recognize the life principle and everything. This is where we diverge. and become something new. And I believe we are of a different species now.
It's time for that evolution and that transformation to happen. Tell everyone where they can find you, find your work.
All you have to do is go to Terry's Lynchpins. That's TERRYS Lynchpins, LYNCHPINS.com. And you'll have access to a number of different apps, a number of different pictures, and all of the patents are listed there, and the philosophy associated, and the understanding that come with these things. Everything has its proof, and you could go to TCOTLC, which is Tango Charlie Oscar, Tango Libra Charlie.com, and pick up the book 1 × 1 = 2, which actually challenges the status quo of an action times an action not having a reaction, which is the basis for the fault and the need for these error correcting codes now.
Gotcha. All right, man. It's been amazing, Terrence, man. Thank you, brother. I'm looking forward to working with you in the future and continuing to build on this.
Yes, this is just this is our second or third.
Second. One was the Instagram, but this is like in person.
Yeah,
official.
Yeah, we need to do this. And if you look up, if you can provide some of those other things up there, anything you
we're
want.
gonna have them all up there, and I'll get some stuff off your site, and we'll make sure we edit it into the video.
Yeah, but I'm available and looking forward to growing.
Thank you, man. Looking forward to it. All right. Peace, everybody. That is another episode of the Forbidden Knowledge Podcast. We had Terrence Howard on here, an amazing human being. And if you didn't learn anything from this, that means you weren't paying attention. Make sure you replay this video. Make sure you click the like button, and also make sure you share this video with as many people as you possibly can. Peace. Watch this video for free at www.4bk.tv. or download the app on your smartphone, Fire Stick app, Samsung TV, Roku, and other app providers.